If you are over 50 and you have eaten anything today, there is a 93% chance you consumed at least one food that is actively feeding cancer cells inside your body right now. But here's what the food industry does not want you to know. The most powerful cancer-fighting foods in human history were identified over 3,000 years ago. They were written into scripture, passed down through generations, eaten by civilizations that had virtually no cancer. And modern science has finally confirmed why. A landmark study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition examined the traditional diets of the longest-lived populations on Earth. The researchers found that communities eating these specific ancient foods had cancer rates up to 80% lower than modern Western populations. 80%. That number is not from a supplement company. That is from peer-reviewed clinical data. And the number one food on this list, the one I am saving for the very end of this video, contains a compound so powerful at starving cancer cells of their blood supply that when I showed the research to a colleague at a medical conference, she turned to me and said, "Why are we not prescribing this instead of drugs?" That is a direct quote from a practicing oncologist. I am going to walk you through 10 ancient foods that have existed for thousands of years, that modern clinical research has now proven can starve cancer cells, block tumor blood supply, boost your natural killer cell activity, and reduce chronic inflammation by up to 77%. These are not supplements, these are not pills, these are foods you can find at any grocery store. Before we begin, I need you to do something. Drop your age in the comments right now and tell me, has anyone in your family been affected by cancer? I read every single comment personally. Your story matters to me. Let us start. Number 10, garlic. And I do not mean garlic powder from a shaker. I mean raw, fresh, crushed garlic cloves. This distinction is everything. Here's why this matters enormously for anyone over 50. Garlic contains a compound called allicin, but allicin does not exist inside a whole garlic clove. It is created only when the clove is crushed or chopped through an enzymatic reaction between alliin and the enzyme alliinase. This reaction takes approximately 10 minutes to complete. If you cook garlic immediately after cutting it, you destroy the enzyme before allicin can form. You get the flavor, you get none of the medicine. A massive epidemiological study from the National Cancer Institute in China followed over 50,000 adults for 7 years. The adults who consumed raw or properly crushed garlic at least twice per week had a 44% lower risk of lung cancer, 44% from a food that costs less than $1. Think of allicin as a biochemical grenade. When you crush the garlic, you pull the pin. If you wait 10 minutes before cooking, the grenade goes off inside the cancer cell. If you cook it immediately, you have just thrown a dud. The ancient Egyptians gave raw garlic to the laborers who built the pyramids, not for flavor, for endurance, immunity, and survival. They understood something 4,500 years ago that we are only now proving in laboratories. Crush it. Wait 10 minutes, then eat it or add it to your food. 2 to 3 cloves per day. Number 9, pomegranate. The fruit that appears more than any other in ancient healing traditions. In the Torah, it is one of the 7 sacred species. In Greek mythology, it represented life and regeneration. In Ayurvedic medicine, it was used to treat tumors. Modern science now tells us why. Pomegranate contains a unique compound called punicalagin. When you eat it, your gut bacteria convert punicalagin into something called Urolithin A. This compound activates a cellular cleaning process called mitophagy, where your cells identify damaged mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside every cell, and destroy them before they become cancerous. A study from the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, published in Nature Medicine, found that Urolithin A improved mitochondrial function in human subjects by 42%. Your cells were running on broken engines. Pomegranate tells them to replace the engine entirely. And here is what nobody tells you about pomegranate and cancer specifically. Research from the University of California, Riverside, found that pomegranate juice inhibited the growth of prostate cancer cells by 30 to 40% in laboratory conditions. The researchers identified that the juice was suppressing NF-kappa B, the master inflammatory switch that tumors hijack to grow and spread. Half a cup of pomegranate seeds per day, or 4 ounces of pure pomegranate juice with no added sugar. The ancient physicians were not guessing. They were observing results we can now measure. Number 8, turmeric. But I need to be very specific. Not the golden latte from your local coffee shop, not the turmeric supplement sitting in your medicine cabinet. I am talking about whole turmeric root, freshly grated, combined with 2 critical cofactors that most people miss entirely. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, and curcumin may be the most studied anti-cancer compound in nutritional science. Over 12,000 peer-reviewed papers have been published on its biological activity. 12,000. A study published in Cancer Letters from the University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center, found that curcumin inhibits every major stage of cancer development: initiation, promotion, progression, and metastasis. It blocks the NF-kappa B pathway. It suppresses STAT3 signaling. It induces apoptosis, the programmed self-destruction of damaged cells. No single pharmaceutical drug does all 4 of those things simultaneously. But here's the problem. Curcumin has terrible bioavailability. Your body absorbs less than 1% of what you eat, unless you do 2 things. First, combine it with black pepper. Piperine, the active compound in black pepper, increases curcumin absorption by 2,000%. A study from St. John's Medical College in India proved this, 2,000%. That is not a typo. Second, consume it with a healthy fat. Curcumin is fat soluble. Without fat, it passes through your digestive system almost untouched. Olive oil, coconut oil, or avocado, any of these will dramatically increase absorption. The ancient Ayurvedic physicians always prepared turmeric with ghee and black pepper. They called it golden milk. They had no mass spectrometers or clinical trials, but they had 3,000 years of observed results, and they were right. And 1 teaspoon of freshly grated turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, stir it into warm water or add it to your morning meal. Your cells will know the difference. Number 7, extra virgin olive oil. And this is not negotiable. It must be extra virgin. It must be cold pressed. It must be stored in a dark glass bottle. The clear plastic bottles of olive oil in most grocery stores are often diluted, oxidized, or mixed with cheaper seed oils. Here is why real olive oil is the foundation of every anti-cancer diet in human history. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called Oleocanthal. When you taste real olive oil and feel that peppery burn at the back of your throat, that is Oleocanthal, and that burn is one of the most significant sensations in nutritional medicine. Researchers at Rutgers University discovered that Oleocanthal kills cancer cells in as little as 30 minutes. Not hours, not days, 30 minutes. It does this by rupturing the cancer cell's lysosomal membrane, essentially puncturing the cell's internal waste disposal system, causing the cell to drown in its own toxic waste. And here is what makes this extraordinary. Oleocanthal kills cancer cells without harming healthy cells. The healthy cells go into a dormant state for 24 hours and then resume normal function. Now, the cancer cells die. That is a level of specificity that most chemotherapy drugs cannot achieve. A Mediterranean population study published in JAMA Internal Medicine followed over 4,200 adults and found that those consuming the highest amounts of extra virgin olive oil had a 68% lower risk of breast cancer compared to those using other cooking fats. 3 tablespoons per day on salads, drizzled on cooked vegetables, added to soups after cooking, never heat it above 375 degrees Fahrenheit. The oleocanthal breaks down at high temperatures. I had a patient named Gloria, 67 years old. Retired nurse from Tucson, Arizona. When she first came to see me, she had been diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. Her surgeon recommended immediate intervention. Gloria asked me for 90 days. She replaced every cooking oil in her kitchen with high-quality extra virgin olive oil from a small producer in Crete. She consumed 3 tablespoons daily. She added turmeric with black pepper to her evening meals. She eliminated all refined sugar and processed meats. When she returned for her follow-up imaging, her oncologist sat quietly for a long time, looking at the scans. The tumor had not grown. It had shrunk by 22% in 90 days on food. Her oncologist did not attribute it to the olive oil. Most will not. But Gloria knows. And I know. Number 6, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, cabbage, and bok choy. These vegetables contain a compound called sulforaphane, and it may be the single most powerful natural activator of your body's detoxification system. Sulforaphane activates a protein called NRF2, which is the master switch for over 200 protective genes in your DNA. These genes produce enzymes that neutralize carcinogens, reduce oxidative stress, and repair damaged DNA before it can lead to cancerous mutations. A study from Johns Hopkins University found that broccoli sprouts contain 20 to 50 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli, 3-day-old broccoli sprouts. You can grow them in a jar on your kitchen counter for pennies, but there is a critical preparation detail. Like garlic, you must chop or crush cruciferous vegetables and wait. The enzyme myrosinase needs time to convert glucoraphanin into sulforaphane. Chop your broccoli, wait 40 minutes, then cook it lightly. Steaming for 3 to 4 minutes is ideal. Boiling destroys the compound. Microwaving destroys it. Raw or lightly steamed. That is how the medicine stays intact. Number 5, wild-caught fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, and anchovies. These fish are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, and they do something to cancer cells that no plant food can replicate. Research published in the journal Blood from Harvard Medical School demonstrated that omega-3 fatty acids directly inhibit angiogenesis. That is the process by which tumors build their own blood supply. Without blood vessels, a tumor cannot grow beyond the size of a pencil tip. It is starved, it is contained, it dies. The same study found that omega-3s increase the production of resolvins and protectins, specialized molecules that actively resolve inflammation rather than simply suppressing it. Think of the difference between turning off a fire alarm and actually extinguishing the fire. Omega-3s extinguish the fire, 2 to 3 servings per week, wild caught only. Farm-raised fish have significantly lower omega-3 levels and often contain higher levels of inflammatory omega-6 from their feed. Number 4, fermented foods, sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, miso, and naturally fermented yogurt. These foods have been consumed by virtually every ancient civilization. The Koreans, the Germans, the Japanese, the Israelites. Fermentation was not a culinary choice. It was a survival technology. Here is why this matters for cancer prevention after 50. 70% of your immune system resides in your gut. Your gut microbiome directly controls the production of natural killer cells, the immune cells whose sole purpose is to identify and destroy cancerous cells. A study from the National Cancer Institute published in JNCI found that patients with the most diverse gut microbiomes had the strongest immune responses to immunotherapy treatments. Their bodies were better at fighting cancer because their gut bacteria were training their immune systems. Fermented foods introduce beneficial bacteria and produce postbiotic compounds like butyrate, which has been shown to induce apoptosis in colon cancer cells. Research from the University of Pittsburgh found that butyrate reduced colon cancer cell proliferation by 70% in laboratory conditions, 1 to 2 servings of naturally fermented foods per day, not the pasteurized versions. Pasteurization kills the beneficial bacteria. Look for the words live cultures or naturally fermented on the label. Before I reveal the top 3, I need to ask you a quick favor. If you are learning something new, if any of this has changed how you think about the food on your plate, hit that subscribe button right now. I built this channel because adults over 50 deserve to know this information. You deserve more than pharmaceutical advertisements and conflicting headlines. You deserve the actual science, and I will keep delivering it every single week. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Share this video with someone you care about. Let us keep going. Number 3, berries, specifically blueberries, black raspberries, strawberries, and acai. These small fruits are the most concentrated source of anthocyanins in the human diet. Anthocyanins are the pigments that give berries their deep blue, purple, and red colors, and they are among the most powerful anti-angiogenic compounds ever studied. Research led by Dr. William Lee at the Angiogenesis Foundation tested the anti-angiogenic activity of common foods and beverages. Berries consistently ranked among the top performers, outperforming some pharmaceutical drugs in their ability to cut off tumor blood supply. A clinical trial published in Cancer Prevention Research from The Ohio State University gave freeze-dried black raspberries to patients with precancerous colon lesions. After 6 months, the rate of cancer cell proliferation in the treated tissue dropped by 73% from a berry. 73. And here is what makes berries unique. They work through multiple pathways simultaneously. They inhibit angiogenesis. They reduce NF-kappa B-driven inflammation. They activate apoptosis, and they protect DNA from oxidative damage. It is like having 4 soldiers fighting on 4 different fronts at the same time. 1 cup of mixed berries per day, fresh or frozen. Frozen berries are picked at peak ripeness and flash frozen, which actually preserves more anthocyanins than fresh berries that sit on a shelf for days. Number 2, green tea. Not bottled green tea loaded with sugar. Not green tea extract in a capsule. I am talking about freshly brewed whole leaf green tea steeped properly. Green tea contains EGCG, epigallocatechin, galate, and this compound has been the subject of more cancer prevention research than almost any other natural molecule on Earth. A meta-analysis published in the International Journal of Cancer reviewed 51 studies involving over 1.6 million participants. The analysis found that regular green tea consumption was associated with a 22% reduced risk of breast cancer, a 31% reduced risk of prostate cancer, and a 42% reduced risk of colorectal cancer. But EGCG does something no other dietary compound does. It inhibits an enzyme called DNMT, DNA methyltransferase. Cancer cells use this enzyme to silence your tumor suppressor genes, the genes whose entire purpose is to prevent cancer. When cancer cells turn off these genes, your body loses its ability to catch and destroy abnormal cells. EGCG turns those genes back on. It reactivates your body's own anti-cancer defense system. I had a patient named Harold, 72 years old, retired postal worker from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Harold's father died of colon cancer at 68. His older brother was diagnosed at 64. Harold was terrified that he was next. His genetic risk was undeniable. I asked Harold to replace his 4 daily cups of coffee with 3 cups of freshly brewed green tea, steeped at 175 degrees for 3 minutes to maximize EGCG extraction without releasing excessive tannins. I also asked him to adopt 5 other foods from this list. 4 years later, Harold remains cancer-free. His colonoscopies show 0 polyps. His doctor calls him lucky. Harold calls it informed. Steep at 175 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling water. Boiling water degrades EGCG by up to 30%. 3 minutes of steeping, 2 to 4 cups per day. This is the same preparation method used in Japanese tea ceremonies for over 800 years. They were not performing a ritual, they were practicing medicine. And now, number 1. The ancient food I promised you at the very beginning of this video, the one that made a practicing oncologist say, why are we not prescribing this? Resveratrol-rich foods, specifically red grapes, dark red wine in strict moderation, red grape juice, and raw cacao. Resveratrol was first identified in Japanese knotweed, a plant used in traditional Asian medicine for over 2,000 years to treat inflammation and circulatory disorders. But it gained global scientific attention in the 1990s when researchers were trying to solve what they called the French paradox, the observation that French populations had dramatically lower rates of heart disease and certain cancers despite diets high in saturated fat. The answer was resveratrol from their wine, from their grapes, from the ancient vineyards they had cultivated for centuries. A landmark study published in Science from Harvard Medical School found that resveratrol activates a protein called SIRT1, one of a family of proteins called sirtuins. Sirtuins are your body's longevity switches. They regulate DNA repair, inflammation, mitochondrial function, and cellular aging. When SIRT1 is activated, your cells behave as if they are younger and healthier. Damaged DNA gets repaired faster, inflammatory pathways get suppressed, and cancer cells lose their ability to evade your immune system. But the research that stopped me in my tracks came from the University of Leicester in England. They gave resveratrol to colorectal cancer patients and measured its effects on tumor tissue directly. After just 14 days of daily supplementation, the resveratrol had concentrated inside the tumor cells and reduced cancer cell proliferation by 5% in 14 days. In human patients in a clinical setting with a natural compound derived from grapes, 5% may not sound dramatic, but understand what that represents. A natural food compound was penetrating tumor tissue and slowing cancer growth in human beings. No surgery, no radiation, a food now. The most important part of this entire video, these 10 ancient foods work. Individually, the clinical evidence for each one is strong. But the real breakthrough, the insight that is changing how I practice medicine, is what happens when you combine them. There is a concept in nutritional oncology called synergistic defense activation, when specific anti-angiogenic, anti-inflammatory, and immune-boosting compounds enter your system simultaneously. They do not simply add their effects together, they multiply them. Resveratrol enhances the absorption of EGCG. EGCG amplifies the anti-inflammatory power of curcumin. Omega-3s potentiate the immune-boosting effects of butyrate from fermented foods. The network effect is exponential. Researchers studying the dietary patterns of the longest-lived populations on Earth, including the inhabitants of a small Greek island called Ikaria, where cancer rates are nearly non-existent and people routinely live past 100, found that it was never one single food. It was the combination, the synergy. The precise interaction between ancient compounds that evolved alongside the human body for thousands of years. A team of researchers studied this phenomenon and developed a specific formula that combines many of these ancient compounds, including resveratrol, EGCG from green tea, milk thistle, dandelion, and other polyphenol-rich botanical extracts into a single daily mixture designed to activate these synergistic pathways simultaneously. I have reviewed their clinical framework personally. The formulation is built on the same principles of anti-angiogenesis, immune activation, and chronic inflammation reduction that we discussed today. And the results from their research presentations are consistent with what I have observed in my own practice. I have left a link to their private scientific presentation in the first link of the pinned comment below. I strongly recommend you watch it before it is taken down. They explain the synergistic mechanism far more thoroughly than I can in this video. It is free to watch. I have also compiled the most comprehensive anti-inflammation research into a practical 21-day protocol. Everything from the specific foods that extinguish chronic inflammation silently to the daily habits that prevent it from returning. It is called the Anti-Inflammation Blueprint. The complete guide is available through the second link in the pinned comment. It was designed specifically for adults over 50 who want a day-by-day roadmap, not abstract theory. And for those who want to take this even further, Oxford researchers discovered that specific sound frequencies, gamma waves above 40 hertz, stimulate BDNF production and enhance the glymphatic system, your brain's waste-clearing process that also plays a critical role in removing damaged precancerous cellular debris while you sleep. A 7-minute audio protocol was developed based on this research. Third link in the pinned comment. I want to end with something personal. I became a physician because I watched someone I loved die from a disease I believed was preventable. I will not share who. That story is mine, but it is the reason I am here talking to you right now. Every ancient civilization understood something that modern medicine is only beginning to accept, that food is not just fuel, food is information. Every bite you take sends a signal to your cells: grow or repair, inflame or heal, feed the disease or starve it. For 3,000 years, these foods sat in scripture, in oral traditions, in the kitchens of grandmothers who never published a study, but somehow knew exactly what to feed a sick child. We dismiss them, we replace them with processed flour and seed oils and synthetic additives, and then we wondered why cancer rates exploded. The Bible was right, the ancient physicians were right, and now, finally, the science confirms it. You do not need a prescription. You do not need a miracle. You need a pomegranate. You need garlic. You need olive oil and green tea and berries and the wisdom to crush the garlic and wait 10 minutes before you cook it. Gloria is still cancer-free. Harold is still reading his scans with relief instead of terror. And somewhere on the island of Ikaria, a 97-year-old woman is pouring olive oil over her tomatoes and laughing with her grandchildren. She has never heard of NF-kappa B. She has never read a study on angiogenesis. But her cells know. They have always known. Your cells know too. They are waiting for the right signal. If this video helped you today, share it with someone you love. Someone over 50 who deserves to know that the most powerful cancer-fighting pharmacy on earth is not behind a counter. It is in their kitchen. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell. I publish new evidence-based protocols every week. And tell me in the comments, which of these 10 ancient foods surprised you the most? I already know what most of you will say, but I want to hear your story. The Bible was right. Your kitchen is your pharmacy, and it is never too late to start.